Hey there viewers, the cameras were supposed to stop rolling, but they didn't. Ellen forgot to turn off the feed while alone with Titch, and what happened next wasn't meant for anyone to see. Now that the footage is out, people are asking one question: what was really going on behind the scenes? Let's get into it. Chapter 1. Frame drift. I didn't mean to go looking. It just started because my cloud storage was full. That little red notification in the corner of my desktop kept blinking. Your archive will expire in 3 days. Download any files you want to keep. I was supposed to be doing laundry that afternoon. Instead, I figured I'd finally migrate the old Ellen Show backups off the cloud and dump them into my external drive. No big deal, just house cleaning. I hadn't touched that material in years, not since I left the show. It wasn't for sentimental reasons either. I didn't leave angry. I didn't leave scared. Just tired, burnt out. The studio felt like it had eaten up enough of my time and attention. Besides, nobody really checks up on people like me, Tex. I wasn't on camera. I wasn't in the credits. I was the one pressing buttons in a sound booth, making sure applause hit the speakers at just the right second. So I sat there in my little home office with my tea getting cold and the blinds half closed, dragging folders across like a robot. Segment B, Raw, Backstage, ISO Tracks, 2020, Sizzle, Promo 1, that kind of stuff. Nothing fancy. Most of it I didn't even preview. Just grab, drop, wait for the loading bar. I was about halfway through the list when I saw it. Tucked between two mislabeled MP3s applause files probably, was a video labeled in all caps, Camera 3, hold.mxf. Not segment B camera 3, not B-roll camera 3, just camera 3, hold. No timestamp, no episode date, no resolution tag. Just that name and a weird little line underneath it in the file info. Live feed. Minus 13 hours, 7 minutes, and 5 seconds. That stopped me. You can't have negative time on a recorded file. That's not how timecodes work, unless the system glitched and mislabeled the metadata, or it wasn't recorded at all. I double-clicked it without thinking. My hand moved before my brain did. I expected it to throw an error or open VLC, but it didn't do either. No media player, no buffering. Just the screen went black. Then the image appeared. No Ellen intro, no theme music, no studio lights or audience noise. It looked like the old green room, but it wasn't quite right. The shape was off. The corners looked too narrow, like the room was squeezed inward. There was no table. The couch was too far from the wall. And instead of art or a poster, there was a full-length mirror. Floor to ceiling, standing where the guest coat rack used to be. The lighting was strange too. It wasn't studio bright, but it wasn't dark either. Just this weird cold gray, like morning fog through frosted glass. The kind of light that makes everything look pale and distant. And tWitch was standing in the middle of it. Not dancing, not walking, not even moving. Just standing there, still, center frame facing forward. His arms hung loose at his sides, hands open, like he was waiting to catch something. He was wearing a plain black t-shirt and jeans. No mic, no earpiece, no visible crew. He didn't blink, didn't smile, didn't even twitch. The camera 3, I guess, was fixed in place, but the image shimmered a little, like it was vibrating or the lens was being gently pulled. It reminded me of old analog broadcasts, when the signal would warp just slightly before going to snow. I watched for at least 2 minutes before he moved. It wasn't much, just one step forward. Slow, deliberate. I paused for a split second, breathing. Then his head tilted, just slightly, like he was looking into the lens, not at it. And then finally he said something. I'm not performing. Don't mistake this for a show. That's when I hit the spacebar. Reflex, pause. But the video didn't pause. It vanished. Not closed. Vanished. The window disappeared. The file was gone. The folder refreshed itself, and camera 3 hold was no longer listed. Not in the recent file list. Not in the search bar. Nowhere. Like I'd imagined. The whole thing. I sat there, blinking, hand still on the mouse. The room felt colder all of a sudden, the kind of cold that doesn't come from AC or a draft. It came from behind me. I turned around instinctively, even though I was alone. Just shelves, dusty cords, a dead plant in the corner. Then I saw the green light, the little LED above my laptop camera. It had turned on. I hadn't opened Zoom, I hadn't clicked record, nothing was running. But that light, the one that only turns on when your webcam is active, it was glowing steady, bright, watching. I slammed the laptop shut. Not gentle, not slow. I slammed it, like slapping something dangerous away. I didn't sleep that night. Not because I was scared exactly, more like I was buzzing. My skin wouldn't settle. I kept looking at my own reflection in the dark window glass. My face looked wrong in it, a little too sharp. My eyes didn't blink when I thought they had. I kept telling myself it was just a corrupted file, glitch metadata, maybe a partial stream that got dumped into the archive by mistake. But I kept hearing his voice in my head. Not performing. Know that voice? I'd heard it every day for 5 years. Off stage, tWitch had a real voice, not the hyped-up stage patter. He spoke soft, thoughtful, always with this little breath between sentences, like he was weighing what to say next. That was his voice on that clip. But the way he said it, it felt like a warning. And why would he say that unless someone had assumed he was performing? Unless someone was watching. The next morning, I didn't touch the laptop, just made coffee, kept the lights off. It was raining outside, one of those slow, heavy rains that makes the power flicker. Around 9 p.m., I started to feel tired, which was strange for me. I usually have to force myself to sleep. That night, I didn't even crawl into bed, just crashed on the couch, still in my hoodie, lights off. At exactly 3:33 in the morning, I woke up. Not gradually, not groggy, just awake. And my TV was on. Volume muted, no smart hub menu, no HDMI prompt, just playing something. The same footage, same room, same lighting, same mirror. And tWitch, closer this time, just a few steps from the camera, still not smiling, still not blinking, just standing there, arms at his sides, head tilted. It was the exact same frame. I looked at the coffee table. No remote. I hadn't touched anything. The streaming box was unplugged. The light on the TV was red when I went to sleep. But now it was on, playing. I stared for what felt like a full minute before tWitch moved again. Another step forward. He opened his mouth, but there was no sound, just the faint hum of static, like a whisper you can't quite hear. Then the screen went black. I sat there in silence. I didn't move. And then the TV whispered. Not loud, not a jump scare, just a breath through its own speakers. It said, not a show. I unplugged it at the wall. Haven't turned it back on since. The next morning when I opened my laptop, the camera light came on again. But this time, there was no desktop at all. Just black, and a little green dot glowing above the screen, like an eye waiting for me to make the first move. Telling myself I imagined it, that it's nothing, but I can still hear his voice. And now, every time I look in a mirror, I check to see if I'm smiling. Because what if the camera wasn't turned off? What if it never was? Chapter 2. The Room with No Feed. I wasn't gonna look into it. That was the plan. Leave it alone. Blame it on the file corruption, maybe on too much caffeine, maybe on getting older. Anything. I'd unplugged the TV, shut the laptop, Didn't even walk near the desk for 2 days. I made soup, I watered the one plant that's still alive, and I tried not to think about tWitch's face staring into that lens. But it wouldn't go away. Not the image, not the silence, not that weird gray light behind him, like a hospital waiting room in a dream. And the more I sat with it, the more I realized I didn't recognize the room. And that bothered me more than anything. I worked that show for years. I knew every angle of that building, from the stage to the side hallways to the side stage rehearsal bay with the broken mini fridge. I'd been in the audience rafters, the green room, Ellen's secondary dressing area, even that weird prop storage space with the locked cabinet no one was allowed to touch. But that room, the one from the clip, it didn't exist, not officially. And that's what finally got to me. That's what made me call Dustin. He was our floor lighting guy back in the day, one of the few people I actually respected on that set. Tall, real chill, liked to say copy instead of yeah, and wore the same busted Converse every season. He was also the only one who mapped the studio's lighting grid himself. Knew every ceiling panel, every breaker box, every nook and crossbeam. He picked up on the second ring. "Yo," he said. I could hear traffic behind him, the faint chirp of a crosswalk. "Hey," I said. "Sorry to bug you." I was clearing old backup stuff from the cloud and found something weird. A video file, no date, no slate. Looked like the green room, kind of. But the layout was off. Off how? Hesitated. The mirror was on the wall that should have been an emergency exit. The walls curved. Couch was pushed center. No ceiling grid. Was there an echo? That threw me. Yeah, you know how dry the green room sound usually is. But this had a bounce, like it was tiled. He was quiet for a second. "You looking at camera 3? He asked. "Or was it handheld?" "Camera 3. Name of the file was camera 3 hold.mxf. "Shit," he muttered. "You found shallow." My skin tightened under my hoodie. "What?" "Notably show A." That's what we called it in the patch notes. Never labeled officially. It's not in the walkthroughs or the union blueprints. But I had to reroute power through it once, back in 2018. Some VIP from overseas was coming in and security wanted a separate area for makeup. I thought it was just some remodeled storage, but then I stepped inside. He took a breath. There were no fixtures, no lighting, I asked. No anything, no bolts, no brackets, no wall mounts, no screw holes, even the clock they had hanging, no cord. Just sitting there like it was stuck in time. I pulled the laptop toward me. I hadn't opened it since that night. The green light blinked once and went dark. "What else?" I asked. Everything about that room felt fake. Not prop fake, not Hollywood set fake, but like someone built it from memory, like it was trying to look like a room but hadn't seen one in a while. I typed in Shell A into the archive search field. Nothing. Then I clicked over to the raw feed logs. The stuff that wasn't exported, just dumped from security cams and temp recording angles. One hit, single frame, no audio, no playback. It showed Ellen in mid-step, walking into a room lit with soft amber glow. Her left hand was still reaching for the doorknob, even though she was already halfway inside, and behind her, reflected in the mirror, were 3 versions of her face. One looking back, one facing forward, and one still smiling after the real Ellen had left the room. I didn't breathe. I just stared. "Dustin," I said, "did the shell room have a camera?" "Not one of ours. No ports, no mounts. But I always felt watched in there, like the walls had seams but no corners. Know what I mean?" I didn't, but I nodded anyway. "Shell?" I said, "like a decoy?" "No," he said, "like what's left after it's done using you." I sat back, my chest tight. That phrase, It landed too heavy. I zoomed in on the still frame. The Ellen in the foreground was in motion blur, but the one in the mirror, sharp, crisp, like she was the main subject and everything else was background noise. And she was looking right into the lens. I clicked for metadata. The timestamp was blank, just empty boxes. I asked Dustin, "Do you remember if tWitch ever went in that room?" Silence on the line. Then, all the time toward the end, a low rumble started in my ears, like pressure, like when you're too high in altitude and your head doesn't know it yet. Waited. "Why?" I asked. Some people thought he was decompressing. Others thought he was helping with guest rehearsals. But I saw him go in once after taping, real late. Thought I'd forgotten a gaff bag, so I came back. He was just sitting in there, facing the mirror, lights off, not moving. Looked like he was talking to it. To the mirror. He started crying. Not loud, but the kind of cry you do when you think no one's watching. Except, I think that mirror was watching him. And he knew it. My cursor hovered over the frame. My hand felt cold, like holding a wet battery. I asked Dustin if he ever recorded anything from Chalet. "Nope," he said, "and I wouldn't if I could. Because rooms like that don't give you footage, they give you echoes, and if you play them back, you're just giving them your attention." We hung up after that. I stared at the screen for another 10 minutes before closing it. The laptop made a quiet click. Everything went black. But then I saw the reflection. In the corner of the screen, my own camera window had popped open for just a second, just long enough for me to see something was off. I wasn't in the frame. I was sitting right in front of it, still, breathing, alive, but the frame was empty. Someone else was standing in my place. Just for a second. What they were watching. Chapter 3. Witch's Compliance Rehearsal. The rendering drive had been unplugged for years. One of those thick black bricks we used to haul from bay to bay before the cloud took over. I hadn't even remembered keeping it until I found it buried behind an old camera battery and a stack of unused Studio cue cards. I don't know what made me dig it out. Curiosity, maybe. Guilt, too. Or just that gnawing tension in my gut that kept whispering, something's wrong, and it didn't start now. I plugged it in late one night. The kitchen clock said 1:41 a.m. I didn't even notice how quiet the house had become until the hum of the hard drive spinning up made me flinch. No label on the folders, no color tags, just dates and numbers and project nicknames only we would understand. I started clicking through the first few files. Most of it was junk. Rendered tests, stand-in walkthroughs, some lighting LUT exports that never got used. And then I found one labeled int_bridge_control_v3 move. No metadata, no duration listed, just the spinning wheel and then video. Open cold, no countdown, no slate, just tWitch. Alone, in the rehearsal bay. But he wasn't dancing. He was pacing, back and forth. The floor beneath him had tape marks, but not the ones we used for stage blocking. These were cleaner, symmetrical, lines intersecting at odd angles like geometry instead of choreography. He paused in the center, then a voice came through, not his, not Ellen's, not anyone I recognized. Just a calm, dry speaker voice, mechanical but human enough to feel close. Smile. Which smiled. Weak, not teeth-baring, like someone practicing. Now blink once. He blinked. His shoulders twitched like he hated how it felt. Now pretend you forgot. He tilted his head. His smile faded. He looked confused. Applause. There was no audience, but tWitch clapped once, just one slow, hollow clap. Then the voice again. I'll forget again. He nodded, and then the screen went black. I checked the timestamp. 39 seconds. That was it. But something about the file wouldn't close. The window froze. The player wouldn't respond. I had to force quit the whole system. When the desktop reloaded, the file had duplicated itself. Same name, but now it had _Alt1 at the end. Opened that one. Same rehearsal bay. Different session. This time, tWitch was already mid-motor when the feed started. He stepped forward, paused, stepped back, tilted his head, blinked. Then the voice again. Repeat sequence. He obeyed. Over and over. I opened 4 more versions of the same file. Each one slightly off. Same commands, same patterns, but his body language changed. The more he repeated it, the more mechanical it looked, like muscle memory was overriding intention. That's when I remembered the audio stems we used for audience laughs. In the main studio, we had a dozen standard laugh tracks, level A, B, and C reactions, high-energy bursts, low chuckles, transitional applause, but sometimes, when things didn't land, we'd sweeten the edit. Add just a little more laughter to sell the moment. I opened one of those files next laugh_track_L3_526_final MP3 and ran it through a frequency visualizer. Underneath the usual peaks and valleys, something pulsed. Not volume, timing. Every spike aligned perfectly with tWitch's movements in the rehearsal footage. Smiled, blinked, flat, longer spiked. It didn't make sense. These laugh tracks weren't supposed to sync with rehearsal footage. They were added after the fact, but the match was perfect. Like the laughter had been recorded in response to his movements before they ever aired. I opened a second broadcast segment, Season 18, Episode 6, Audience Warm-Up. I remembered that taping. Ellen had surprised a guest by bringing out their 3rd grade teacher. Everyone cried. It was one of those go-viral setups. I scrubbed through it to the dancing segment. Titch had done a quick freestyle, nothing major, just 30 seconds of movement between bits. I split the screen. On the left, his live broadcast segment. On the right, one of the compliance rehearsal files. Same clothes, same shoes, but completely different energy. On the left, he was bouncing, relaxed, charisma flowing off him like light. On the right, he looked like a puppet. The same steps, but no soul, just execution. And then I noticed something else. In the rehearsal footage, he was wearing a lapel mic. Not plugged in, just there, like someone wanted to track his heart rate, his breathing. At the very bottom of the screen, in tiny white font, subtitles began flickering in and out, too fast to read. I took a screenshot and reversed the frame, enhanced it. The line said, "He rehearsed the memory of being free." My mouth went dry. I opened another file. This one was darker. The lights in the bay had been dimmed. The geometry tape was gone. Just tWitch standing in the center of the room, arms outstretched. The voice gave new commands. Forget what came before. He nodded. Oh, smile. He smiled. Now forget the smile. He closed his eyes. No clap, just once. He didn't. The voice paused. Then he whispered. Not through the speakers, but in the audio waveform itself. Just barely audible beneath the noise floor. Had to isolate the frequencies and stretch the waveform to even catch it. But it was there. A chant. Faint. Electronic. Like radio static from somewhere not quite human. Who rehearsed the memory of being free. Over and over again. Like a subliminal loop. I felt sick. My hands were shaking. I reached for my tea mug and spilled it on the desk. Lukewarm liquid dripped over the trackpad. I barely noticed. The next frame froze on its own. No command, no click. The player stopped, and tWitch looked directly into the camera. Behind him, reflected in a darkened window, not a mirror this time, was a shape. It was Ellen, but not quite her. She was grinning, eyes wide, arms at her sides, and she was mouthing something I couldn't hear. The subtitles didn't match her mouth. Read, "She isn't teaching him to dance, she's teaching him to stay." I closed the lid. Didn't even wait for the files to finish rendering. Some part of me knew what I was seeing. Those weren't rehearsals for the show. They were rituals. Memory erasure dressed up as warm-ups. Choreography as containment. And tWitch, he wasn't preparing to go live. He was being trained not to leave. Chapter 4, The Kindness Switch. It was raining when she called. Not that light Hollywood drizzle either. Real rain. Sheets of it, washing down the windows like something trying to scrub the outside clean. I had the lights off in the living room. The laptop was open, but the brightness was turned down low. I didn't want to see my own reflection in the screen. The voice on the line was faint. Not scared exactly, but hesitant, like someone peeling something off their skin slowly. She didn't give her real name, said it was safer that way. "I'm calling from a burner," she said. "If I hang up suddenly, just delete everything. Promise me." I promised. She had been an intern on the show, one of hundreds who came and went over the years, but she wasn't like the rest. She stayed longer. She got invited to what people called the inner circle. Not management, not production leads, just the people who Ellen noticed. "There's this room," she said. Everyone called it the kindness room. Timeless room? It was supposed to be her private space for decompressing. You know, after the heavy moments. Emotional guests, big surprises, crying kids. Stuff that needed come-down time. I remembered it vaguely. I'd seen the door once or twice. No nameplate. Just a soft white paint job, always closed, always just out of sight from the main hallway. If you didn't know it was there, you wouldn't think to look. But it wasn't for her, the girl said. It was for us, for the ones who got too close. I asked what she meant. The people who saw too much, who stayed late, who caught something they weren't supposed to catch. She'd call you in there, always alone, always smiling. She went quiet. I thought it was a compliment, she finally said. Being called in, like I was being trusted, like I mattered. That's how it works, right? They don't yell. They reward you with closeness. She started talking faster after that, like she needed to get it all out before something stopped her. She'd offer you tea, never said what kind. She'd ask questions, personal stuff, about your family, your insecurities. Then she'd touch your shoulder, always the left shoulder. Her hand would just rest there for a beat too long, and then she'd say something like, "I see you, thank you for being real with me," and you'd feel good, you'd feel seen. But it didn't last. Afterward, everything felt wrong. Like you'd given something away you didn't understand. Her voice cracked. I used to hum when I was anxious, little melodies just to myself. But after that room, I couldn't stop. Even when I was asleep, my roommate said I'd hum in my dreams. Same tune, over and over. What tune? That's the thing, she said. It wasn't a song. It was more like static, a tone, but it felt like a lullaby. You know? I didn't, but I nodded. She told me about the first time she saw tWitch go into the kindness room. It was after a segment with a veteran reunion. Big emotions. Ellen had hugged the man 3 times. Tears, slow music, standing ovation, the works. After the segment, tWitch disappeared. She caught sight of him maybe an hour later coming out of the kindness room. Was soaked, she said, not like crying, like he'd run a marathon. His shirt was clinging to him. His face was blank. I mean blank. Nothing behind the eyes, just walking like he was made of paper. I asked if he said anything. Not then, she said. He just sat down in the loading dock and stared at his shoes for a long time. We were all too nervous to talk to him, but a few hours later, right before rap, he walked past me in the hallway. Didn't stop, didn't look at me, just muttered. She trailed off. What? I said. What did he say? He switched it on. I felt something cold settle in my chest. She switched what on? I asked. That's the thing, she whispered. Nobody knows. But after that day, he was different. More careful. Still smiling, still dancing, but you could tell. Something was rehearsed in him. The call dropped suddenly. No click, no static, just gone. I stared at the screen for a long time, tried to redial, nothing, line dead. I waited a few more minutes, pacing the living room while the rain hit harder. Then I sat down on the couch and opened my phone. It was on AirDrop mode. I don't remember turning that on. And there it was. A new file. No sender. Just one name. Mine. The file was labeled, my first name, sleeping.mo. I didn't click it right away. I just stared at the preview frame. It was my face, eyes closed, lying on my side, in my bed. The room was dark, lit only by the faint blue of the router light. The camera angle was from above. I don't own anything that could capture that angle. And yet, there I was, completely still, except for my lips. They were moving, not talking, humming, like a lullaby that didn't belong to anyone. Like I'd heard it before the dream started, and kept rehearsing it after I forgot. Chapter 5, Camera 7 wasn't ours. Back when I was working in the control booth, Camera 7 was a joke. It never worked, not even once. It was assigned to the left balcony rail above the main stage, supposed to capture wide shots of the audience or occasionally the ceiling banners during musical numbers. But all it ever fed back was static. No picture, no audio. Just that gritty, buzzing shimmer you get when a signal exists without a source. We unplugged it after 3 weeks. Didn't even bother sending it for repair. We had what we needed with cameras 1 through 6. I think someone wrapped a cable around its mount and left a post-it on the lens cap that said DED. After that, no one mentioned it again. But this week, I started thinking about it. I don't know why. Maybe it was the humming file. Maybe it was that image of Ellen in the mirror smiling in 3 directions. Or maybe it was just this ache in my bones that told me there's still something watching, and it's older than you remember. So I started digging through the old master control logs. Not the standard stuff we used for editing, but the raw routing lists from the network hub. The ones that tracked which camera IDs were active and when they were pinging live. Normally, those logs would be empty by now, but they weren't. Some of them were corrupted, some refused to open, but the string for camera 007 showed consistent pings. Not just from show days, not just from tapings. From after. Months after the studio shut down. Even after the studio lot was cleared out. There were check-ins, tiny data packets uploaded at random intervals. December, March, a burst of activity in June, and then one entry tagged with a timestamp from last week, which made no sense. The mount was gone, the booth was dismantled, that feed couldn't exist anymore. But the log showed something uploaded. A file. Followed the reference trail and found the path buried deep inside the backup server. /cam_7/segment_final_dot_me_mob.info. The file was large, larger than any raw footage file had reason to be. No encoding info, no thumbnail. Just a flickering time code. Running. 8 minutes 32 seconds. I hesitated. My laptop fan spun louder. The screen shimmered faintly even before I clicked. No. I pressed play. The footage opened in complete silence. It was my living room. Same desk, same lamp, same half-cracked mug I'd dropped during Chapter 3's rendering session. The lighting matched. So did the rain on the window. It wasn't a recording from the booth. It was from inside my house. And I was in the fray. Seated at the desk, shoulders hunched, staring at the screen. But the angle, it wasn't from the laptop camera. It was from somewhere above and behind me, like a corner of the ceiling that doesn't even exist in real space. I watched myself open the corrupted tWitch file. I watched myself pause it, then close the lid. Then something shifted. In the footage, I leaned forward and rubbed my eyes. Behind me, partially in shadow, someone stepped into frame. But not like I remembered her. She moved too smoothly, like her limbs were weighted differently. She didn't blink, just stood behind me, hand raised, fingers slightly spread. Then, slowly, she placed her hand on my shoulder. In the video, I didn't react. But sitting there in real time, watching it unfold, I felt it. His weight, cold, familiar, like someone had just touched me through the screen. I scrubbed back, played it again. Same motion, same timing. Only now, there was a subtitle along the bottom edge of the feed. One word. Compliant. I slammed the laptop shut, paced the room 3 times, opened every drawer in the house looking for old webcams or hidden mics. Nothing. No bugs, no lenses, no way for any footage like that to even exist. I live alone, no roommates, no devices with wide-angle lens capability. So how did camera 7 capture it? I opened the file again. This time, it played faster, not at 1x speed, maybe 1.25, like someone was pushing it forward to meet a cue. Ellen stood behind me longer in this version. I could see her eyes more clearly now. They didn't shine like normal eyes. They looked matte, like they absorbed light. She leaned in closer, and the subtitles shifted. New text. Smile. This is your final segment. The feed cut to black. I waited for it to auto-close. It didn't. The black screen stayed up for 3 full minutes. Then, faintly, behind the silence, I heard it. Applause. Not real applause. The wrong kind. Looped, hollow, too perfectly timed. It didn't follow emotion, it followed movement. I reached for the trackpad to stop it. My finger hovered just an inch above. But my reflection in the screen, it was already smiling. Chapter 6. The Eye in the Playback Glass. I started keeping voice notes. Not for anyone else, just for myself. I couldn't trust written logs anymore. Typed words felt too easy to tamper with. Something about the screen made everything look normal, even when I knew it wasn't. The first note was calm. I listened back. My voice sounded clipped, but still mine. Tuesday, 10:12 p.m. Blacked out the office windows, moved the router to the garage, taped over every lens, laptop closed. No signals. I remember saying it like I was checking off a to-do list. Practical. Steady. Like that would make a difference. By the second day, the notes got harder to follow. Gaps, pauses, static between thoughts. Sometimes I'd trail off in the middle of a sentence and never finish it. I didn't know I was doing that until Playback. I burned the old hard drives, pulled them out one by one, carved an X into each casing with a screwdriver, poured rubbing alcohol over the circuit boards, and lit them in a tin pan out back. I watched the plastic warp and the labels curled in the flame like skin. It didn't help. Every reflective surface in the house started to flicker. Not obviously, not like movie stuff, just tiny, wrong moments. The bathroom mirror would fog up on its own, even when the water wasn't running, and on that fog, reversed, so you had to tilt your head to read it. I started seeing captions. Small, white, same font as the subtitles from the rehearsal files. Things like, "You've been cued. Laugh now. Forget what you noticed." Sometimes they'd vanish the moment I'd blinked. Sometimes I'd find them already written when I walked in, faint impressions still cooling on the glass. The kitchen backsplashed tiles, white ceramic, nothing fancy, started to hold images in their reflections. Not my face, not my kitchen, but scenes. Out-of-place chairs, studio light rig floating where my ceiling should be. My own bedroom, but with Ellen standing at the foot of the bed, still smiling, arms crossed. I stopped turning on lights after that, moved through the house with a flashlight and a jacket thrown over every mirror, even the tiny one in the hallway thermostat, even the microwave door. But it didn't matter, because the reflections kept recording. I saw myself, smiling when I wasn't, and the fridge handle, the oven glass, the back of my phone when the screen was off. I'd lift it up to check the time and see myself already grinning, like someone had told a joke I didn't hear. That's when I went back to the rendering drive, not because I wanted to, but because I couldn't help it. Something in me needed to finish watching. I opened the old tWitch directory again. The compliance files. Most of them still refused to play without glitching, except one. It was marked Compliance Loop Guest Mode. The pending. I clicked. No buffering, just instant playback. It was the studio rehearsal bay, same as before, but darker. The lines on the floor were glowing faintly now, white outlines that pulsed every few seconds, like they were alive. There were no crew, no camera ops, just a tripod set back far, grainy footage like an old security reel. The witch stood at the center again, still, calm. He was facing a wall I hadn't seen before. It was all mirror, wall to wall, no seams, no edges. And the mirror wasn't reflecting him, not at first. Instead, it showed a room I didn't recognize. A bedroom, a desk, a figure sitting at a screen. My room, watching. Then, in the footage, tWitch lifted his head. The mirror synced instantly. Now it reflected him. Eyes dim, shoulders slack. He opened his mouth. "If you're watching this," he said, "you already smiled." I did. Not on purpose. It just happened. Felt like a nerve firing. Like my face had been waiting for its cue. I froze, reached for the laptop lid, but the video continued. Behind him, the mirror began to ripple. Not like water, more like light bending. Ellen appeared inside it, not in the room, just in the reflection. She didn't walk, she just faded in, one frame at a time, her smile wide, arms still. Her lips moved silently. Subtitles appeared. "That smile wasn't yours." I snapped the laptop shut and screamed, not from pain, from recognition. Because she was right. I hadn't chosen it. It had been rehearsed. Somewhere along the way, I'd been taught to smile in silence, taught to feel good when told, taught to forget when I wasn't needed. And it hadn't started this week. It started years ago. Somewhere between the sound booth and the cue monitor and the sweetness of her voice when she'd lean over the speaker and say, "Let's make some joy, okay?" I ripped the laptop battery out with a screwdriver, took a hammer to the shell, smashed the casing until the keys popped and the frame cracked. Then I went through the rest. TV, gone. Phone, in the sink. Tablet, microwave, every speaker unplugged and drowned in bleach. It took hours. When I was done, I sat in the center of the living room, panting, bloody knuckles pressed against my jeans. There were no screens left. Only silence. Only dark. But something was still wrong. A chill crawled up my spine. The air didn't feel empty. I turned slowly and saw the hallway mirror, the one I'd forgotten to cover. My reflection stood there, but it wasn't doing what I was doing. I was still seated, breathing hard, but the reflection was already standing, watching, smiling, waiting for the next cue. Chapter 7. She rehearsed this too. I kept losing time. Not the normal kind of forgetting, where you misplace your keys or drift through a movie you've already seen. This was whole hours, yanked out like pages from a notebook. I would blink, and the clock would be different. The coffee cold, the rain gone. Once, I found myself standing in the shower with my clothes still on, the water running lukewarm, my phone buzzing from the sink like it had been calling me for ages. That's when I booked the therapy appointment. The office was downtown in one of those converted loft spaces. Brick walls, soft rugs, plants that looked too green to be real. The therapist greeted me with the kind smile professionals practice in front of mirrors before their first clients arrive. Her name was Dr. Patel. She spoke in a low tone and used words like grounding, mindfulness, integration. I tried to match her calm, but my brain felt jagged, a broken tape spitting static between every thought. She asked me why I'd come. I opened my mouth, but instead of words, I saw images. The rehearsal bay lines glowing, the mirror smiling back, the subtitles breathing fog on glass. My head pulsed. I told her I was having trouble separating memories from something else. I said it felt like pieces of someone else's life had been spliced into mine. She listened, nodding, jotting notes on a tablet. I watched the stylus move and wondered if the screen could see me seeing it. Halfway through the session, my phone lit up in my pocket. I had switched it back on that morning only to set my rideshare. Now it buzzed once, then went silent. I ignored it. Dr. Patel asked me to close my eyes and breathe. She guided me into a body scan. Notice your toes, your knees, your stomach, your throat. The moment I reached my throat, the phone chimed again, louder this time. I apologized, pulled it out to silence the notifications. There was only one. A file. No sender. No preview. Just the text. Open now. I didn't touch it. I placed the phone face down on the couch cushion and tried to focus on Dr. Patel's voice, but the silence between her sentences stretched wider and wider until it felt like something could fit inside. She asked me to describe a safe place, somewhere I felt in control. My mind went blank, and then, without warning, gave me the image of the studio hallway. Not safe at all, but suddenly, that's where I was. Eyes open, staring at the exposed brick of her office, yet seeing camera rigs hanging from the ceiling, cables coiled like sleeping snakes along the floor. Dr. Patel's voice shifted away, distant. The room got brighter, the edges of things overexposed like an old tape paused too long. I felt heat on my palm, the phone again. I turned it over. The file was playing without any tap. Twitch. Full screen, no interface. His face filled the frame, tears streaking down. He was in the rehearsal bay, but everything behind him was gone, just blackness swallowing the walls. In his right hand he held the burnt scrap I had seen before, edges singed and curling inward. Only now the text was clear. Letters scorched into the paper as if written with fire itself. She is. Frequency. She is feeling. She is compliance. He brought the paper close to the lens, like he wanted me to memorize it. Then he lowered it and looked straight at me. Not at the camera. at me. I felt it hitch inside my chest, like our sight lines met through glass too thin to stop anything. "This was never about forgetting," he said, voice shaking. "This was about rehearsing obedience until it feels like your idea." Dr. Patel said my name gently, but it sounded muffled, like she was calling from the bottom of a pool. I tried to answer, my tongue felt stapled to the roof of my mouth. On screen, tWitch glanced over his shoulder. The darkness behind him rippled. A shape moved, just out of frame. He sobbed once, a short, broken sound. Then the feed glitched. The lines fractured across the screen, and for an instant I saw dozens of smaller frames layered behind him. Other people, other rooms, all watching back. Interns, staffers, audience members, maybe even me, lined up like thumbnails in a cursed gallery. The picture snapped to black. I blinked, and the office dissolved. I don't remember falling, but it felt like hitting the bottom of a long, invisible shaft, light squeezing out until only a pinhole remained. The next thing I knew, air returned in a rush so loud it sounded like applause. My eyes opened. I was sitting on a metal chair. A single lamp burned overhead, industrial bright, buzzing like a wasp hive. My hands rested on a table of raw plywood. The room smelled of paint and something electric. My right wrist hurt. I looked down and saw a faint bruise, like fingers had gripped too hard. There was a camera in front of me, old, one of the shoulder rigs we'd retired seasons ago. No operator, just the unit on a stand, pointed at my face. Its tally light was on, recording. Off to the side, a mirror leaned against the wall. Not mounted, just resting on the floor, tilted slightly back. The surface glinted with that unstable shimmer I'd come to dread. Someone whispered behind the camera, "Action." I jerked in my seat, but no one stepped out of the dark. The single bulb made a small island of light. Everything beyond the edges was swallowed whole. My throat was raw. I tried to ask where I was, but no words came. The camera lens reflected a tiny red halo in the mirror's glass, and that's when I noticed. My reflection wasn't mirroring. It was sitting, yes, but its shoulders were relaxed while mine were tense. Its mouth was closed while mine hung open. Its eyes focused not on the lens, but on me. Then it moved, a subtle thing. The hands lifted, palms up as if offering something invisible. Mine stayed flat on the table. I shook my head. The reflection didn't. Its lips parted. Nothing came out, but I could read the shape. "Run." My pulse slammed. I pushed back from the table, chair legs screeching. The camera's light flickered. Somewhere beyond the bulb's reach, something shuffled like feet on concrete. I turned toward the door I'd yet to see, and instead caught the mirror at a new angle. Witch's face now filled its frame, replacing my own. He looked older, exhausted. His eyes darted, pleading. He mouthed the word again. "Exercising, withdraw," he asked, his voice "Run." I stood and the camera followed, motor whirring. The lens pitched up slightly, staying centered. I stumbled backward until my shoulders hit cold drywall. No door, no window, just darkness behind the light's border. My reflection, the version of me that wasn't following, rose more slowly, calm. Another whisper crawled around my ear, so close I smelled peppermint and burnt sugar. He rehearsed this, too. I spun. Nothing. But the mirror never lied. In its silver skin, I saw Ellen stepping out from that border of dark, her silhouette sharp as a cutout. She placed a hand on tWitch's shoulder, only he wasn't really there, just his reflection. Her smile looked carved, deeper than muscles should allow. The room around me tilted, my vision warped, frames slipping out of sequence. Rehearsal bay, therapy couch, studio hallway. Each blink brought a different backdrop, as though the walls were cycling sets faster than a stagehand could dream them up. The camera floated, no, rolled, toward my face, closer and closer, until all I could see was black glass and my own eyes reflected back, tiny and afraid. My reflection pressed a finger to its lips. Shit. The room snapped to full brightness. The plywood table now held stacks of blank cue cards, each with one printed word: smile, laugh, forget. Up next. They slid across the surface on their own, lining up in order. My reflection picked up the first card. It said smile. The camera beeped. From somewhere inside the lens, applause erupted, hollow and too crisp, the same sweetened track we'd looped 1,000 times. My reflection turned the card around for me to read, and as my eyes traced the word, the corners of my own mouth twitched upward, no matter how hard I tried to keep them still. The bulb above me dimmed. The mirror's silver bled into shadow. My reflection grew faint, replaced by static like an old TV between channels. In that noise I saw faces, all the people the studio had ever captured, laughing, crying, clapping on cue, hitting their marks without knowing why. Over the roar, a single line cut through, clear, undeniable, stamped across the glass in white. She is frequency. She is feeling. She is compliance. My smile cracked at last. I forced it down, teeth grinding until my jaw ached. I stepped forward, grabbed the camera by its lens hood, and wrenched it aside. The applause track warped, turned to radio squeal, then silence. The mirror darkened. I backed away, breath shaking. The cue cards fluttered and spilled onto the floor like fallen leaves. Somewhere behind me, I swore I heard Dr. Patel's calm voice asking another question, but it was drowned by a deeper sound, the low throb of a stage monitor warming up. I looked once more at the mirror. Twitch's face reappeared, closer than before, eyes wide with urgency. He mouthed one last time, "Run." The bulb popped, shattering glass into darkness. And I did. Chapter 8. Your frame was never empty. The room is white. Not a set, not sterile. Blank. Like a space that hasn't been assigned its meaning yet. No furniture. No windows. The light comes from nowhere, but it casts soft shadows anyway, curling gently around the corners. There's a chair in the center. Metal, plain, facing a standing mirror, tall and thin. The kind you might find in a dressing room or a hallway meant to feel bigger than it is. You don't remember how you got here. But you're seated now. You try to move. Because this isn't your memory. This isn't your voice. You're watching something. Or maybe you're being watched. A screen flickers to life just behind your eyes, not in front of you, inside you. Title fades in. Viewer mode. Active. A cursor blinks. Then types. Frame identified. You. The mirror ripples. The glass doesn't break, doesn't crack, just shimmers, like heat off pavement. Then a shape forms. Slow at first. Legs, torso, arms. Hair cropped close. Back turned. It's Owen. But not the version you remember. Not the daytime grin or the soft sneakers or the pastel blazer. This one's grayscale, silhouette. Her outline pulses faintly, like she's being broadcast through a filter that hasn't finished loading. She turns, but not in the mirror. Behind you! And before you can look back, she appears again, inside your reflection, smiling. Only this time, the smile knows. The camera light blinks red above your head. You don't remember a camera being there. You don't remember agreeing to film. but it's blinking. Steady. Recording. The mirror flickers again. Now it shows images. Not of you. Of all the others who clicked. The interns. The staff. The audience. tWitch. Their frames line the mirror like tiles in a contact sheet, each one repeating the same gestures. Smile, nod, laugh, silence, looping, perfectly timed. They're not reacting to anything. They're rehearsing. You shift just slightly and the screen adjusts. The light overhead gets a touch warmer, like a filter being fine-tuned. Your reflection glitches for a moment, then corrects itself. Your smile is back, even if you didn't mean it. In the silence, a voice begins. Not through speakers, not in the air. Inside your head. Familiar, crisp, sweet. The mirror darkens around the edges. You watch. The tiles flicker again. Now some of the faces are gone, their frames blank, labeled, uploaded. You whispered. You try to look away. You can't. You rehearsed. Your breath catches. You smiled. The tiles go black, one by one, until only yours remains. The reflection shifts. Stop mimicking anymore. It's leading. Your mouth moves. You don't tell it to. Your lips part. But no sound comes. Instead, the screen flashes white. File begins to autocomplete. No option to pause, no player interface. Just a title. Say nothing. Final.mov. It starts with static, then cuts to a wide shot. Eating, a chair, a mirror, a blinking camera. Someone is seated. Not you. Not yet. But you're already there. Already recorded. Already framed. The applause starts faintly, like it's coming from the other side of the wall. In the mirror, Ellen steps forward again. Closer now. Almost full color. Her smile stretches. And she whispers not into the camera, into you. She didn't forget to turn the camera off. She leans closer, her breath fogging the glass. She turned you on. The light caught, but the frame keeps recording.